Welcome to video 21. Fear not the absolute. Ooh, scary. Not. Hello, friend. Thanks again for being here. In my last video, I talked about being a hopeless optimist. There's every reason to be the laughing fool, being that whatever the world calls foolish and clueless is what heaven calls wisdom. It's our mind and all its judgments that our intelligence has dreamed up that is the cause of all our sorrow. We know not what it is. We know not what we are doing. Better give up ever trying to figure it out. The world makes no sense whatsoever and never will. The world can never be fixed because it rests on a broken foundation. So, what to do? Nothing. It's our always trying to do something that seems to make the world go round. But nothing we do seems to make it better, and it never will. This may sound like a depressing idea, but it's actually a very happy and freeing realization. The saving grace of it all is that behind the brokenness is absolute perfection, as per God's will and plan and constancy. We have every reason to be hopelessly optimistic about the fact that God's will is all there is, all there ever was, and all there ever can be. And we are very much an element of that. Let's be clueless and happy instead of thinking we know what's going on and being dismayed, disappointed, and upset by it. Okay? Everything we ever thought about anything and anyone was simply wrong. Sorry, it's true. We were wrong. Not sinful, but mistaken. God doesn't get angry at that. He doesn't even notice it because what's not right in his mind, and God is very much in his right mind and cannot become insane any more than we, is not real, and he doesn't see it. Talk about very, very good news. Now, let's get really humble and believe it. To continue to believe in an impossible world is self-deception and arrogance to a degree so inflated that its magnitude of insanity can barely be conceived because it's so crazy, yet amounts to nothing, because what's not real is nothing. Only in nightmares and in a state of mind asleep can what is not possible seem to be real. God is absolute, not conjecture, not fantasy, not delusion. He's absolutely wonderful. There's no room for nothingness in him, and in his reality, where we truly abide, there is joy eternal. We are there right now. No other choice. Speaking of the absolute, today's topic is fear not the absolute. God is the absolute, and there's every reason to rejoice of that eternal and immutable fact. God is the balm of blessings overflowing. What's to fear of he who is the God of all? That he's inevitable. That's really good. No matter how far we think we wander, the moment we turn our head to see where we just came from, God's right there, staring us in the face, eyeball to eyeball. We cannot escape the absolute. Maybe that's what makes it scary. Let's consider this more closely. Fear not the absolute. The idea of the absolute and absolutism scares most people. They fear of the rule of a single authority. But what if that authority is smarter, kinder, more generous, and much more fair than we are? What if the rules are one of freedom and never-ending blessing, abundance, protection, and a worry-free, problem-free, conflict-free, eternal existence of non-stop supreme happiness? Then it's not so bad, is it? Terrible rulers are, indeed, a bummer and should not be supported. But does it make sense to attempt to fight off the eternal author of reality whose love for us knows no limit, and whose care is so great that he made it impossible for us to hurt or be hurt, impossible to die, impossible to be abandoned and rejected, impossible to want, and impossible to be impoverished in any way, no matter where we think we are, even in insanity? God is. God is the one who assures eternal oneness, where it is not an option to break away from everything and wander in the darkness alone, starving, where the only hope is to die as soon as possible to shorten our suffering. All this does our loving, absolute God do for us. And it's done way before time seemed to exist. It is impossible to leave the heavenly state of mind that he created. All roads lead to him. No matter how far we seem to go away from him, he's still in front of us, behind us, at our sides, before us, and after us. He's unavoidable. Just because, in this world, we don't exhibit the noble and benevolent characteristics of an all-giving, omnipotent, forever-loving God, nor are we able to trust our own judgments, or even sometimes our own intentions, doesn't mean that God is not worthy of our total trust, devotion, unconditional surrender, submission, and faith, because he does forever exhibit these godly traits and will and can never change. He is God. He lives in heaven, where time doesn't exist, so change is impossible. To yield full control and acquiesce to him is the only way he will assume his intrinsic position as creator of all that is in our own mind. We must willingly receive him and all he stands for, which is everything real. God is more than a gentleman and true friend. He shows us and created us to give, receive, and be love, because he created us by extension, not by division. We are one with his heart forever, absolutely. In the exact opposite way, the ego, who is not our friend, because it has no power or authority, uses devious means to deceive and controls with fear, smoke, and mirrors, and sleight of hand. It never reveals its true colors, nor can it ever earn your trust and devotion to it. The ego does not deserve us. It is evil in the sense that it is not holy. In truth, it is nothing, because God is everything. So whatever is left cannot be anything. Evil is not, though the belief in it is hell indeed. Being illegitimate and the betrayer of truth, the ego stoops to using guilt, threats, lies, capriciousness, and other manipulative techniques to coerce our obedience to its malevolent dictates. The rule of the ego is the exact opposite of God's. The more you obey the ego, the more he punishes you, eventually killing you off in the end. Because it is a raving lunatic, in its insatiable quest for power and revenge, it tortures, enslaves, and imprisons, slowly bleeding the soul out of us until we die, all along warning us of imagined enemies, bidding us to attack before we're attacked, then punish us for doing it, yet never revealing that it alone is our only enemy, the enemy of our souls. Is this who you really want to be loyal to? Loyalty to the ego is loyalty to suffering and death because it is dead, having never been alive. It must be terrible because being the opposite of God, which in truth is not possible, must be to exhibit the opposite types of behaviors. God is certain. The ego is uncertain and full of doubt. God loves. The ego is afraid of everything. God blesses. The ego attacks and defends and attacks. God lives forever and true. The ego has never lived and is a lie. God created heaven and eternity. The ego believes it made an impossible world where impossible things seem to happen and kills itself off in time. God sees himself everywhere he looks because he is everywhere and everything that is. The ego sees fear and hatred and death everywhere it thinks it looks because that's what it is. How could God be mad at us for believing in such lunacy? He doesn't. He simply gave us the answer to it, the truth. To believe in untruth, or lies amounts to a waste of time. Since there is no time, being only an untrue belief means it amounts to nothing. Everything about the ego is nothing. It was born of nothing, so it doesn't even exist. But the belief in nothing has led to what appears as something. This something is always shape-shifting and coming at us from every direction because, just like a nightmare, it does nothing but scare the pants off of us, but just like in a nightmare, it's nothing. It seems to birth and kill every aspect of the nothing that it is because it hates itself. So, when you identify with it, it hates you too. Can you really play its evil and very sad game? The answer is, would you want to? I believe the answer from anyone would be, hell no. Exactly. We must say no to hell and yes to the absolute, because the absolute is absolutely heavenly. God's reality is extremely simple. It's one. One idea, one oneness, one. Can't be confused or upset about that. In oneness, there is no conflict, so there is no attack and no need to defend. Peace abounds. What is given is received at the same time. There are no separate parts, so reality is self-contained and forever sustainable. Though these ideas are totally alien to the world, because the world is built on the belief in duality, the truth of oneness and God's heavenly kingdom will always prevail without battling unreality, duality, simply by being what it is. Thank God that we are one with the whole that is all there is. Hallelujah. Yes, all this might sound nice and pleasant and utopian and all that, but how does it apply to us in bodies here on Earth? Simple. There is no Earth. There is no world. There are no bodies. We just think we see these apparitions because we believe, on an unconscious level, that we succeeded in making a world that suited us in a way which we believed would be better than the heaven where God put us and where we must remain, because to go against God's will can only be done in fantasy. We are not that, and we are not there. We are where God put us. There are no alternatives, my friend. Still not convinced? Of course not. Until we realize that nothing we believe we made can ever satisfy, because God had nothing to do with it, so it's nothing, and that pain is not joy, we will continue to try to find our reality in an unreal world. But that search is futile, because we are not in that unreal world. We are in heaven, and we are as God created us to be forever and ever. God simply cannot behave outside of the realm of his being, which means that instead of allowing us to wander from reality to unreality, where demons and ghosts and goblins and devils are running the place, where then he has to save us from, he simply made it impossible to go outside of himself because he is all in all. There is no other place to go. There is no one else to be. We are as God created us. We are where God put us forever. That is pretty absolute. Now, all we have to do is to welcome that with open arms, empty of the idea of the world and all the little, very sad, yet inconsequential ideas that seem to make it up and seem to make it seem real. God is absolute, which means it leaves no room for anything else because it's everything. So, to have an imaginary something in your hands when you try to approach him means he can't fit. We must choose God's reality only and nothing else, because nothing else sucks and wastes space, as well as wastes our mind. Our existence is predestined to never reach a destination, since there's no place we are not. We cannot leave ourselves, and we cannot be lost, and we do not need to be saved. This is God's grace and mercy in full effect. We are not in need of being saved from what cannot happen. The impossible cannot happen, and there is no will besides God. If there were, there could be no God, because by definition, God is all there is. So where does that leave you, the you think you are, and the place you think you are? Nowhere and never. Do you really want to settle for that? To be the nowhere man, nowhere? This is what we choose when we delude ourselves into thinking that we could do a better job making us happy than God could. There could never be found happiness in a world of separation, suffering, sadness, and death. Don't you agree? When we finally get sick and tired of the world, which has never satisfied us for very long, if that, and we allow ourselves to believe that God can't be that evil, that he would allow us to choose hell and actually end up there, then we open our minds up to the other, yet in reality, only alternative, which is not really an alternative since it's the only reality that actually exists. Then we can ask for it, though we already have it. You see, here we have to choose God, even though there is no other choice, because we believe there is another choice, though we actually have no idea what it is or how there could be another choice. It's crazy, of course, and the insane state of mind that believes in the impossible must be dealt with using crazy devices of mind correction to straighten itself out. Yes, itself. For we got ourselves into this impossible mess, and only we can get ourselves out. With God's help, of course. This is the key to salvation. Accepting the fact that we wanted full autonomy to choose our reality, our world, and be our own guide to our own definition of life. Real life has no end and cannot suffer. What was born and can die was never here, since only what is always here can never be real. The only reality is a constant with no beginning or end. What amounts to what we call a life is not much different than an old-fashioned flash on a camera. It goes from nothing to very bright, then instantly fizzles out, never to be bright again. What comes and goes in the blink of an eye is not really worth very much, is it? When you think about eternity and spirit, these are ideas that have no end and no limits. This is our reality. There is no other choice. God doesn't go from nothing to very bright to nothing again with no hope of being bright again. He's a constant light that never dies. Not even the greatest star in the universe can proclaim that ability. Everything in the physical universe will die, even the universe. Choose real life instead. Only way to have it is to stop being afraid of the absolute. We are one with it after all, and it's a very nice absolute, too. Pensive thought to ponder. Have you ever noticed that the more you think about or consider something, the more complicated and less easy it is to understand? That's because this world is nothing but an unsolvable puzzle. It's like a conundrum inside a conundrum inside a conundrum. Once we thought we had figured out the end of the universe, only to discover that it seems to go on forever, though it goes nowhere, because it's only an idea of limitation. We keep trying to expand nothingness by trying to see something in it. That's all. How deluding is that? God is the idea of oneness. It can't get easier to understand than that if you really want to understand it. It's easy because it's what we are. What is one cannot be understood from a thought system based on the belief in duality and opposites, beginnings and endings. When we are ready to accept our true identity in God and in heaven, when we were created by him with us as part of the process, then it's there for us to experience in our awareness. It can't be explained, but it can be enjoyed in full. Never-ending supreme happiness that never changes, fades, fizzles out, or dies. It's forever. See you in my next video.